Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're taking a really deep dive into the fascinating and honestly rapidly evolving world of regenerative medicine. Specifically, we're going to be exploring the clinical realities of using mesenchymal stromal cell therapy, or MSCs for short, to repair kidneys. You know, our kidneys are absolute workhorses. They're constantly filtering waste, balancing electrolytes, regulating our blood pressure, the whole shebang. But when they get damaged, well, the consequences are profound.
So it brings up the million-dollar question, doesn't it? Can stem cells actually reverse kidney failure? Right here, right now, we're going to do a rigorous investigative reality check. We need to separate the medical hope from the hype and look strictly at what the science is currently telling us about MSCs and kidney disease.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today. 1. The kidney damage problem. 2. The promise of MSCs. 3. How do MSCs actually work? 4. What the research shows. And 5. The future of kidney care.
Starting right off with Section 1, the kidney damage problem.
You see, to truly understand any potential cure or treatment, we've got to first understand the mechanics of the destruction itself. We have to look at exactly why the kidney's vital filtration functions decline over time. Chronic kidney disease doesn't just happen overnight, right? It develops over months or even years, and there are a bunch of potential triggers, things like autoimmune diseases, chronic inflammation, recurrent kidney injuries, toxins, and even certain genetic disorders. But if we're being completely honest, diabetes and high blood pressure are the primary culprits we really need to watch out for. Diabetes, in particular, is a leading cause of chronic kidney disease worldwide, and it triggers this massive cascade of inflammation and vascular damage.
And what's absolutely crucial to understand here is the physiological point of no return. We're talking about fibrosis. When those primary culprits we just mentioned damage the kidney, the organ responds by forming scar tissue. And this progressive scarring, the fibrosis, is a massive roadblock. Once significant fibrosis sets in, the kidneys have an incredibly limited natural ability to regenerate that damaged tissue. It's like hitting a brick wall. This is exactly why this disease is so notoriously hard to reverse and why scientists are desperately looking for outside help.
Which brings us perfectly to Section 2, the promise of MSCs.
Let's shift the paradigm for a second and look at what regenerative medicine actually brings to the table. For the longest time, I think the public perception of stem cells was that they were just simple replacement parts, like swapping out a bad tire on a car. But scientists aren't just looking at mesenchymal stromal cells to swap out old kidney cells for new ones. Instead, they're studying them for these highly specific biological superpowers. MSCs actually possess remarkable anti-inflammatory, immunomodulatory, and tissue-supporting properties.
So, let's move to the next section and see how this builds. Section 3. How do MSCs work? How do these MSC superpowers actually function inside a damaged kidney? Well, this brings us to a really foundational concept in modern regenerative research, called the paracrine effect. Think of MSCs kind of like highly trained cellular paramedics. When they arrive at the site of kidney damage, they don't necessarily turn into permanent, brand-new kidney cells. Instead, they survey the environment, and they release these specific biological signals to the surrounding cells. They're essentially directors of healing, shouting instructions to the body's native cells on exactly how to repair and protect themselves. To really appreciate what those paramedics are up against, consider the exact domino effect that leads to kidney failure in the first place. It all starts with inflammation. That chronic inflammation leads directly to cellular injury. Then, those injured cells cause the vast network of tiny blood vessels in the kidney to malfunction, which is vascular dysfunction. That dysfunction accelerates our old enemy, fibrosis, which ultimately results in the loss of kidney function. It is a relentless, step-by-step cascade of destruction.
But this is exactly where MSCs intervene. They attempt to interrupt every single step of that destructive process. Remember those cellular paramedics? Their signals target that cascade directly. They release molecules to lower immune activity, essentially cooling off that initial inflammation. They release growth factors to protect injured cells from dying off. They actively influence pathways to slow down that irreversible scar tissue formation. And on top of all that, they promote vascular repair, helping the damaged tissue get the oxygen and nutrients it so desperately needs. They are literally fighting the domino effect at every single level.
All right, let's shift gears slightly. Section 4. What the research shows. What we just talked about is the biological theory, and honestly, it's incredibly exciting. But it is time to get grounded and look at the hard clinical data. When we map out the current research landscape, a really clear picture emerges. In the lab, across various animal models of kidney injury, the results are highly encouraging. Moving up into early human trials, including studies on diabetic kidney disease, we see that administering MSCs is feasible,
And we're definitely seeing those signals of biological activity. But look at the large-scale proof. Right now, there is simply insufficient evidence to show that MSCs can reliably restore kidney function. The results vary wildly depending on the severity of the disease, the exact source of the MSCs, and the dosage. We are just still waiting on those massive, well-controlled clinical trials to tell us for sure.
So the absolutely crucial point to take away from all this is the distinction between what they might do and what they cannot do. The regenerative potential being investigated today is primarily about protection. MSCs might protect your remaining kidney tissue, they might regulate inflammation, and they might slow down further damage. But currently, MSCs cannot reliably reverse established end-stage kidney failure. They aren't some magic eraser that's going to fix a severely scarred, fibrotic kidney.
And because of that stark reality, I want to share a critical safety warning directly from the medical literature, and it is absolutely vital to understand this. Patients who require dialysis should therefore never discontinue dialysis because of MSU treatment unless their kidney specialist determines that dialysis is no longer medically necessary. I cannot stress this enough. It is incredibly important to keep those medical guardrails up and always prioritize patient safety above all else.
Moving to our final part, Section 5, the future of kidney care.
So how do we bridge the limitations of today with the medical innovations of tomorrow? First and foremost, we have to acknowledge that MST therapy is still investigational. It's not a cure right now. And that means standard treatments remain the absolute, mandatory foundation of care. We're talking about aggressively managing your blood pressure and diabetes, utilizing kidney protective medications, staying on top of dietary management, and of course, when necessary, relying on dialysis and transplantation. These remain essential. Regenerative medicine is being studied to eventually supplement these foundations, not immediately replace them. But you know, the future is wide open, and researchers are already looking at the next major breakthrough. Since we now know that MSCs work primarily through their paracrine effect, their signaling, scientists are asking a pretty profound question. Could the future of kidney repair rely purely on those regenerative signals, like extracellular vesicles and exosomes, without even needing to administer the whole stem cells at all? I mean, could we literally just bottle the paramedic's instructions? It is a fascinating frontier in regenerative medicine, and it's one that could change everything. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning, keep learning, and as always, keep an eye on the science.